Loki, the trickster god of chaos and transformation. Part 1. Shapeshifter. Why does Loki wear so many skins? Loki, the enigmatic figure of Norse mythology, is renowned for his extraordinary ability to change shape, a skill he employs with cunning and often humorous intent. This constant transformation is not merely a display of power, but a fundamental aspect of his chaotic nature. He shifts forms to deceive, to escape, to infiltrate, and to manipulate, blurring the lines between what is real and what is illusion. From a majestic falcon to a humble fly, a swift salmon to an old woman, his guises are as varied as his motivations, each serving a specific purpose in his intricate schemes. His shape-shifting is intimately tied to his role as a trickster. By adopting different forms, Loki can evade capture, gain access to forbidden places, or simply sow confusion among gods and giants alike. This fluidity of identity allows him to be present in situations where his true form would be unwelcome or immediately recognized, making him an invaluable, if unreliable, asset to the Aesir. His transformations are rarely simple disguises. They are complete alterations of being, often accompanied by a shift in demeanor to match the adopted form. Consider the time he transformed into a mare to distract the giant's horse, Svalofari, preventing the completion of the wall around Asgard and saving the gods from their unwise bargain. This act, born of necessity and a desire to escape the consequences of his own advice, highlights the pragmatic side of his shape-shifting. It was not a malicious act, but one that served to benefit the gods, albeit through a highly unconventional and somewhat scandalous method. This particular transformation also led to a significant and often discussed aspect of his mythology. Another instance of his metamorphic prowess is when he borrowed Freya's falcon cloak, a magical garment that allowed the wearer to fly. While not a complete bodily transformation, it enabled him to assume the characteristics of a bird, facilitating his travels and enabling him to gather information or deliver messages, sometimes with mischievous intent. These temporary changes highlight his adaptability and willingness to use whatever means necessary to achieve his objectives, whether good or ill. Loki's ability to become an old woman named Chalk to deny Baldur's return from Hell further illustrates the depth of his transformative powers and the extent of his malevolence. This was a deliberate act of cruelty, ensuring the beloved god's continued demise. In this guise, he was able to hide his true identity and deliver the fatal blow to the gods' hopes, showcasing how his shape-shifting could be wielded as a weapon of despair and destruction, masked by an innocuous exterior. His shifting forms also reflect a deeper philosophical concept within Norse mythology, the fluidity of existence and the constant interplay between order and chaos. Loki embodies this liminal space, constantly moving between different states of being, never truly settling into one identity. This makes him unpredictable and dangerous, but also vital, as he often precipitates changes that ultimately strengthen the gods or reveal their weaknesses. His protean nature prevents stagnation. The ease with which Loki sheds one skin for another suggests a fundamental detachment from a fixed identity. He is not defined by a single form or a single purpose. Instead, he is a being of constant flux, a force of nature that cannot be contained or easily understood. This detachment allows him to operate without the constraints of loyalty or a singular moral code, enabling his complex and often contradictory actions throughout the myths. His many skins also serve as a narrative device, allowing him to navigate diverse situations and interact with a wide array of beings. Without his shape-shifting, many of the most iconic Loki stories would be impossible. It is his primary tool, more potent than any weapon, enabling him to weave himself into the fabric of creation and dismantle it at his whim. The sheer variety of his forms underscores the boundless nature of his cunning. Ultimately, Loki wears so many skins because it is an extension of his very being. It is how he interacts with the world, how he expresses his trickery, and how he embodies the ever-changing nature of chaos. Each transformation is a testament to his intelligence, his adaptability, and his inherent resistance to being confined. He is the master of disguise, and in his myriad forms he reveals the many facets of his complex character. Part 2. Friend and Foe. How can he save the gods one day and betray them the next? Loki's oscillating role as both ally and adversary to the Aesir is one of the most compelling and perplexing aspects of his character. His actions are a tapestry woven with threads of genuine assistance and malicious sabotage, often within the same narrative arc. This duality stems from his unique position within the divine hierarchy. He is a giant by birth, yet bloodbound to Odin, granting him a peculiar blend of outsider status and intimate access to Asgard. His motivations are rarely pure, often driven by boredom, a desire for attention, or a need to rectify a problem he himself created, making his alliances fleeting and his betrayals sudden. One day, Loki might be the ingenious problem solver, using his cunning to extract the gods from predicaments. A prime example is his role in retrieving Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, after it was stolen by the giant Thrym. It was Loki who devised the elaborate plan involving Thor cross-dressing as Freya to trick Thrym, a scheme that ultimately led to the hammer's successful recovery. In this instance, his quick thinking and willingness to engage in an audacious deception directly benefited the gods, saving them from a potentially devastating loss. However, the very next day, or even in the very next story, Loki might be the architect of their downfall. His involvement in the death of Baldur, the beloved god of light and purity, stands as his most heinous betrayal. After discovering Baldur's single vulnerability to mistletoe, Loki manipulated the blind god Hoder into throwing a mistletoe dart, striking Baldur down. This act of pure malice, driven by envy and a desire to cause pain, was a direct assault on the heart of Asgard and foreshadowed the coming of Ragnarok. This contradictory behavior can be attributed to several factors. Firstly, Loki thrives on disruption. He finds satisfaction in turning order into chaos, whether that chaos ultimately benefits or harms those around him. The thrill of the trick, the challenge of manipulating events, seems to be a powerful driving force for him, regardless of the consequences for others. His moral compass is notoriously skewed, prioritizing excitement over ethical considerations. Secondly, his actions often arise from a desire for personal gain or to avoid punishment. When the gods threaten him for his transgressions, Loki often uses his cleverness to mitigate the damage, sometimes by helping them in an unexpected way. The story of the giant builder who nearly completed the wall around Asgard faster than agreed upon, leading to the gods' panic, is another example. Loki, having initially recommended the impossible terms, then transformed into a mare to distract the giant's horse, preventing the completion and thus saving the gods from their ill-advised promise. His relationship with the other gods is complex and fraught with tension. While he possesses a keen intellect and provides moments of levity with his wit, he is never truly accepted as one of them in the same way as Odin or Thor. He remains an outsider, constantly seeking validation or attention, which often manifests in disruptive ways. This perpetual liminality fuels his unpredictable nature, as he feels less bound by the conventions and loyalties that govern the other Aesir. The gods themselves are often complicit in his shifting allegiances. They tolerate his presence, even rely on his ingenuity, despite knowing his treacherous nature. They are aware of his capacity for both good and evil, yet they continue to engage with him, perhaps out of necessity or a strange form of affection. This dynamic creates a fertile ground for his dual role as both indispensable ally and dangerous foe, as they consistently give him opportunities to act in either capacity. Ultimately, Loki embodies the unpredictable nature of chaos itself. He is a force that cannot be neatly categorized or consistently relied upon. His ability to save the gods one day and betray them the next is not a sign of inconsistency, but rather a consistent expression of his inherent instability and his commitment to perpetual change. He exists to challenge the status quo, to test boundaries, and to force the gods to confront their own flaws and vulnerabilities, making him an uncomfortable but undeniably crucial part of their mythology. His duality ensures the narrative continues to twist and turn. Part 3. Mischief Unbound. What happens when laughter turns cruel? Loki's mischief is legendary, a constant undercurrent in the sagas of the Norse gods. Initially, his pranks often seem harmless, playful, or at least reparable. He might cut Sif's golden hair, a petty act that he then rectifies by commissioning dwarven craftsmen to create even more wondrous treasures for the gods, including new hair for Sif made of spun gold. These early escapades, while annoying, often lead to unexpected benefits, like the creation of Mjolnir or Odin's spear Gungnir. The laughter his antics provoke is often mingled with exasperation, but rarely fear. However, there comes a point where Loki's laughter turns cruel, where his pranks transcend simple annoyance and become acts of genuine malice. This shift marks a dark turn in his character, revealing a deeper vein of bitterness and envy beneath the surface of the playful trickster. The turning point is often seen in his treatment of Baldur, where his actions cease to be about stirring up trouble for amusement and become about inflicting irreversible harm and sorrow. The laughter that accompanies these darker deeds is no longer shared, but rather a chilling, solitary sound. The death of Baldur is the most prominent example of Loki's mischief becoming outright malevolence. Baldur was beloved by all, a symbol of light and goodness. Loki, perhaps fueled by jealousy or a desire to dismantle the harmony of Asgard, took advantage of Baldur's invulnerability to all things except mistletoe. He orchestrated the god Hogger's unwitting role in Baldur's demise, an act of calculated cruelty that plunged the gods into a profound grief. There was no magical artifact born from this act, only irreparable loss. Following Baldur's death, Loki's contempt for the Aesir becomes overtly aggressive. At the Feast of Aegir, he launches into a venomous verbal attack, known as Lokasenna, or Loki's Quarrel. He systematically insults and reveals the deepest secrets and shames of almost every god and goddess present. His words are not playful taunts. They are cutting, designed to inflict maximum emotional damage, exposing hypocrisy and vulnerabilities with brutal precision. The atmosphere is thick with hatred, a far cry from the light-hearted teasing of earlier tales. In Lokasenna, Loki accuses Freyja of promiscuity, Freyr of selling his sword for love, Odin of effeminacy and witchcraft, and Frigg of infidelity. He reminds Thor of his past failures, and humiliates Tyr by recounting how the god lost his hand. This barrage of insults is not about fun. It is an unbridled expression of his resentment towards the gods who, in his eyes, have never truly accepted him despite his contributions. The laughter is now purely his own, a mocking sound aimed at their suffering. This escalation from benign trickery to outright malevolence suggests a fundamental shift in Loki's psychological state. Perhaps the gods' constant distrust and the harshness of their judgments pushed him to a breaking point. Or perhaps his inherent chaotic nature simply could no longer be contained by mere pranks. His joy in causing disruption morphs into a desire to cause pain, to tear down the very fabric of their society. The consequences of this unbound mischief are dire. Loki's actions directly lead to the unraveling of the peace and stability of Asgard. The death of Baldur and the subsequent binding of Loki set in motion the chain of events that will culminate in Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. What began as an impulse to stir things up for a laugh eventually becomes a catalyst for cosmic destruction, demonstrating the profound impact of unchecked malicious intent. When laughter turns cruel, it signals a loss of innocence, a descent into a darker purpose. Loki's journey, from a mischievous but ultimately redeemable figure to a harbinger of doom, illustrates the dangerous potential of unchecked resentment and the destructive power of a mind bent on inflicting suffering. His unbound mischief transforms from a source of comedic relief into a force that threatens the very existence of the world. Part 4. The Binding of Loki. Can chaos ever be chained? The Binding of Loki represents a pivotal moment in Norse mythology, a desperate attempt by the Aesir to contain the burgeoning chaos he embodies. Following the unforgivable act of instigating Baldur's death and his subsequent taunts at Aegir's feast, the gods' patience finally snapped. Loki's unchecked mischief had escalated to outright malice, making him a clear and present danger to the stability and harmony of Asgard. The question then arose, could such an embodiment of pure, unadulterated chaos ever truly be chained? The gods, in their wisdom and their fury, certainly believed it was necessary to try. The retribution for Baldur's death was swift and brutal. The gods hunted Loki down, dragging him and his family to a desolate cave. There they transformed his son Vali into a wolf, who then, in a fit of uncontrollable rage, tore apart his own brother, Narfi. The gods then used Narfi's intestines, now hardened into unbreakable chains by magical means, to bind Loki to 3 stone slabs. This act was not merely punishment, it was an attempt to neutralize a force of nature they could no longer control. The conditions of his binding were made even more agonizing. Skadi, the vengeful giantess who was among the gods at Aegir's feast and heard Loki's insults, hung a venomous serpent above his head. This serpent continuously drips corrosive venom onto Loki's face, causing him immense pain. His faithful wife, Sigyn, remains by his side, holding a wooden bowl to catch the drops of venom, offering a small, desperate measure of relief. However, when she must empty the bowl, the venom falls upon Loki, and his agonizing writhing causes earthquakes throughout the world. This elaborate and cruel punishment highlights the gods' recognition of Loki's immense power and the severity of his crimes. The binding is not a simple imprisonment. It is a profound act designed to shackle a being whose very essence is freedom and disruption. The use of his own son's entrails emphasizes the depth of the betrayal and the tragic consequences that unfold from his actions, marking a complete rupture between Loki and the divine community. Despite the gods' efforts, the binding of Loki does not truly chain chaos. Instead, it merely delays its inevitable unleashing. The prophecies of Ragnarok clearly state that Loki will break free from his bonds, leading the forces of destruction against the Aesir in the final battle. His screams and struggles, which manifest as earthquakes, serve as a constant reminder that his malevolence is still present, albeit suppressed, and that the world is never truly safe from his influence. The story suggests that chaos, by its very nature, cannot be permanently contained. It can be suppressed, momentarily constrained, but its inherent energy will always seek an outlet. Loki, as the personification of this force, will ultimately burst forth, more bitter and vengeful than ever. His binding, therefore, is not a solution, but a temporary measure, a pause before the final cataclysmic confrontation. The chains are a physical restraint, but they cannot extinguish the spirit of rebellion and disorder within him. The presence of Sigyn, steadfastly catching the venom, offers a glimpse of enduring loyalty and perhaps even love amidst the torment, but it does not diminish the effectiveness of the binding. It rather emphasizes the sheer agony Loki endures, underscoring the severity of the gods' judgment. Her presence humanizes the otherwise monstrous punishment, yet his writhing reminds all that his agony is continuous. In essence, the binding of Loki answers the question with a resounding no. Chaos cannot ever be truly chained. It can be temporarily subdued, but its power is too fundamental to be permanently extinguished. Loki's incarceration is merely a prelude to his ultimate liberation and his central role in the destruction of the world, demonstrating that some forces are simply too potent to be perpetually confined. His eventual escape is a foregone conclusion. Part 5. Loki's Children. Why are his offspring monsters? Loki's offspring are among the most fearsome and destructive beings in Norse mythology, often depicted as monstrous entities destined to play crucial roles in Ragnarok, the end of the world. This raises a significant question. Why are the children of the trickster god consistently portrayed as such terrifying figures? The answer lies in a confluence of factors. Loki's own chaotic nature, the mothers of these children, and the symbolic representation of the destructive potential inherent in unchecked trickery and rebellion. His progeny are not merely unlucky. They are physical manifestations of the very forces Loki embodies. The most famous of Loki's monstrous children are by the giantess Angrboda, whose name itself means bringer of sorrow. These three children are Fenrir, the colossal wolf, Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, and Hel, the ruler of the underworld. Each of these beings is not only physically formidable, but also deeply intertwined with the prophecies of Ragnarok, ensuring their monstrous destiny. Their very existence is a threat to the established order of the cosmos, mirroring their father's disruptive influence. Fenrir the wolf was deemed so dangerous by the gods that they attempted to bind him, a task only accomplished after much deceit and the sacrifice of Tyr's hand. He is fated to break free, devour Odin, and wreak havoc during Ragnarok, symbolizing untamed, destructive power that cannot be contained. His monstrous nature is not simply his size or ferocity, but his insatiable hunger and his preordained role as an instrument of divine death. Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, grew so large that it encircled the entire world, biting its own tail. It is the sworn enemy of Thor, and their final battle at Ragnarok is prophesied to result in mutual destruction. This serpent embodies a pervasive, encircling threat, a primordial force of chaos that constantly pressures the boundaries of the known world. Its immensity and the inescapable nature of its embrace contribute to its monstrous status. Hel, the goddess of death, rules over Niflheim, the realm of the dishonored dead. Half beautiful woman and half decaying corpse, her grotesque appearance reflects her domain and her role as a figure of ultimate finality. She embodies the inescapable reality of death and decay, a grim and unsettling aspect of existence. Her dominion over the dead marks her as a powerful and foreboding figure, distinctly separate from the vibrant life of Asgard. Beyond these three, Loki also fathered Sleipnir, Odin's eight-legged steed, with the stallion Svadilfari, while in the form of a mare. While Sleipnir is a magnificent and useful creature, not traditionally considered a monster, his unusual birth and his connection to the trickster god highlight the strange and often unsettling origins of Loki's offspring. Even his more beneficial child comes from an utterly unconventional chaotic union. The monstrous nature of Loki's children can be seen as a symbolic representation of the consequences of his own chaotic actions and his alliances with the forces outside of Asgard. His union with Angrboda, a giantess, further solidifies his connection to the primordial forces of Jotunheim, the realm of giants, which is often depicted as wild, untamed, and hostile to the order of the gods. Their lineage itself is a source of their inherent otherness and destructive potential. Moreover, the gods own fear and attempts to control these children. Binding Fenrir, casting Jormungandr into the sea, and banishing Hel to the underworld likely exacerbated their monstrous natures. These actions, born of a perceived threat, may have alienated them further, pushing them towards their destined roles as adversaries of the Aesir. The gods' interventions, intended to prevent disaster, arguably ensured it. Ultimately, Loki's children are monsters because they are the physical embodiment of the chaotic, destructive, and uncontrollable forces that Loki himself represents. They are the inevitable fruits of his rebellious nature and his disregard for order. They are a tangible representation of the threat he poses to the cosmos, destined to return and fulfill their roles in the destruction of the world he helped to undermine. Part 6. Father of Ragnarok. Is he the true destroyer of worlds? Loki's role as the father of Ragnarok is central to understanding the Norse apocalypse. While he is not the sole cause, his actions are undeniably the primary catalyst, the thread that unravels the tapestry of the nine worlds, and brings about the twilight of the gods. His destructive influence is a culmination of his shifting loyalties, his escalating malice, and the monstrous progeny he unleashed upon the cosmos. To call him the true destroyer of worlds might be an oversimplification, but his impact is undeniably foundational to the cataclysm. The most direct and unforgivable act that sets Ragnarok in motion is Loki's orchestration of Baldr's death. Baldr, the beloved god of light and purity, was the embodiment of all that was good in Asgard. His demise caused immense grief and broke the sacred peace among the gods. It was this act that led to Loki's brutal binding, which in turn fuels his intense hatred and thirst for vengeance, ultimately leading to his escape and leadership of the forces against the Aesir. Without Baldr's death, the final conflict would not have been instigated in the same way. Furthermore, Loki's children play crucial destructive roles in Ragnarok. Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, is destined to break free from his bonds and devour Odin, the Allfather himself. Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, will rise from the ocean to poison the sky and engage in a world-ending battle with Thor. Hel, Loki's daughter, will lead armies of the dead from Niflheim. These formidable beings, sired by Loki, are not mere participants. They are key figures in the destruction, each fulfilling a pivotal destructive prophecy. Loki himself leads the charge against the Aesir. Upon his release from bondage, he will pilot the ship Naglfar, crafted from the fingernails and toenails of the dead, carrying an army of giants and other monstrous beings. He will stand opposite Odin on the battlefield of Vigrid, embodying the ultimate opposition to order and creation. His leadership signifies not just rebellion, but a calculated, vengeful strike against those who chained him. However, it is important to note that Ragnarok is not solely Loki's doing. The prophecies speak of other destructive forces. Surt, the fire giant from Muspelheim, who will engulf the world in flames. The giants of Jotunheim. and the inherent weaknesses and moral failings of the gods themselves. The gods, despite their power, are also flawed. Odin's pursuit of knowledge, Thor's temper, and the general laxity that allowed Loki to run rampant all contribute to the unfolding tragedy. The very structure of the cosmos, as depicted in Norse mythology, is cyclical. Ragnarok is not just an ending, but also a cleansing, a necessary destruction that paves the way for a new world to emerge. In this sense, Loki is a vital, albeit destructive, component of a larger cosmic process. He is the force that breaks down the old order, allowing for renewal. His role is to catalyze the inevitable, rather than solely creating it from nothing. Yet, without Loki's specific acts, the death of Balder, the creation of his monstrous lineage, and his ultimate betrayal, the specific events and timing of Ragnarok would likely be different. He is the active agent who sets the wheels of destruction in motion, the one who tips the scales from precarious balance to irreversible collapse. His spite and cunning are the driving forces behind the final, devastating confrontation. Therefore, while not solely responsible for Ragnarok in its entirety, Loki is undeniably its primary architect and motivator. He is the father of many of its key destructive players and the general who leads the forces of chaos against the established order. He is the true destroyer of worlds in the sense that his actions directly precipitate the events that lead to the cosmic conflagration, ensuring that chaos ultimately reigns, if only for a time. He orchestrates the grand finale. Part 7. The Trickster Archetype. Why do we still need Loki? The Trickster Archetype, embodied so perfectly by Loki, remains a compelling and necessary figure in human storytelling and psychology, even in modern times. We continue to need Loki, not because we admire his malice, but because he represents crucial aspects of the human experience that are often uncomfortable but vital for growth and understanding. He is the embodiment of disruption, questioning, and the inherent chaos that prevents stagnation, forcing us to reevaluate our norms and beliefs. One of the primary reasons we still need the Trickster is that he challenges authority and the status quo. Loki constantly undermines the established order of the gods, exposing their hypocrisies, their flaws, and their vulnerabilities. In every society, there is a need for a figure who can point out the absurdities of power, who dares to speak uncomfortable truths, and who pushes against rigid conventions. The Trickster ensures that no system, no matter how grand, is entirely immune to scrutiny or change. The Trickster also represents creativity and ingenuity. While often used for selfish ends, Loki's mind is incredibly sharp, capable of devising elaborate schemes and finding solutions to seemingly impossible problems. He is the one who conceptualizes the bizarre and the unexpected, demonstrating that sometimes the only way forward is through unconventional thinking. This aspect of the Trickster encourages us to think outside the box and embrace innovative, even disruptive, ideas. Moreover, Loki embodies the shadow self, the darker, more chaotic aspects of human nature that we often suppress. He is selfish, envious, and spiteful, and he acts on impulses that defy conventional morality. By encountering the Trickster in stories, we are forced to confront these less desirable traits within ourselves and within society. He serves as a mirror, reflecting the potential for malice and self-interest that exists alongside our capacity for good. Loki is also a catalyst for change and transformation. His actions, though often destructive, lead to new developments and ultimately pave the way for a new world after Ragnarok. He shakes things up, forcing characters and narratives to evolve. This reflects the reality that growth often comes from discomfort and disruption, that endings are often necessary for new beginnings. He is the unpredictable element that ensures life is never static. His humor, even when it turns cruel, provides a form of catharsis. The trickster often uses wit and mockery to highlight absurdities. And while his jokes can be deeply offensive, they force us to confront uncomfortable truths. This allows for a release of tension and an examination of societal norms through the lens of satire, even if that satire is biting and unforgiving. Laughter, even dark laughter, can be a powerful tool for social commentary. Finally, the trickster archetype allows for the exploration of moral ambiguity. Loki is rarely purely good or purely evil. He operates in the gray areas, performing acts that are both beneficial and detrimental. This challenges simplistic black-and-white morality and encourages a more nuanced understanding of complex characters and situations. He reminds us that motivations are often mixed, and consequences are rarely straightforward. In essence, we still need Loki, because he represents the essential friction required for life and growth. He is the embodiment of disruption, the force that tests boundaries, exposes flaws, and prevents the world from becoming complacent. He reminds us that chaos is an inherent part of existence, and by understanding and acknowledging it, we can better navigate the unpredictable nature of our own lives and the world around us. He is the necessary shadow that defines the light,